Well, I'm afraid sometimes it's boring when you ask, what is funny? What makes us laugh? The answers always tend to be very serious. Now, Matty Simmons, of course, one of the producers of European Vacation, your involvement with humor all of your life makes it possible maybe for you to talk about humor. But my first question is, why is it so boring sometimes to wonder what is funny and why? We get so serious about humor.
Well, I don't think it's boring. I think it's difficult. I think humor is a very personal thing. You laugh at something that I may not laugh at. We all have those things that touch us as being very funny, or very humorous. Sometimes a lot of people agree, and that's when you make a successful movie or a successful book or print a successful magazine. It's all things to all people. Recently, for example, we, at the Lampoon, we published an issue that was compiled of all European humor material. And Americans, I'll never do it again, because the Americans did not respond to it.
And sometimes
they didn't find where the humor was.
Sometimes the same response or lack of it is found when we look at European commercials. Those, especially those intended to be whimsical.
Of course, the commercials they show us here usually are pretty funny, and that because otherwise they wouldn't be showing us.
Nonetheless, I'm wondering how much of an ethnic variety of humor we have, as much as in dress codes and language and everything else. Here you're dealing with a picture that takes you across several countries. What's funny in one, is it funny in another?
Well, I think this picture will be. I think this picture is something that National Lampoon's European Vacation is a picture that will touch people in every country, primarily because its humor takes place in America, in Germany, in France, in Italy, and so forth. The first picture, which was enormously successful here, National Lampoon's Vacation, was not popular in Europe, for example. They didn't get the jokes. They didn't understand. It was a very local thing. Humor is, in many cases, even within the boundaries of the United States, very local. For example, Woody Allen is a very successful humorist when his movies are played in New York and Los Angeles. And in the middle of the country, primarily, he doesn't do very well. His pictures are not big, grossing movies for that reason.
And a lot of that humor grows out of the verbal aspect of it, but a humor that grows out of situation and even slapstick physicality, does that stand a better chance to be universal?
Well, there's no question about it. The movies that we do are much more physical, for example, than the movies that Woody Allen does. We, being the National Lampoon, National Lampoon's Animal House or National Lampoon's Vacation, are much, much more physical, and yes, of course, that crosses more boundaries than verbal humor.
Now, by now, people are wondering, well, what does he know about this? Let's talk about
very little.
National Lampoon phenomenon. How many generations and incarnations can you trace for us of the various Lampoon enterprises?
Well,
you've got 30 seconds now.
The Lampoon started in 1970 as kind of an offshoot of the Harvard Lampoon. I was in the publishing business, and I brought in 2 or 3 editors from the Harvard Lampoon, and we started a humor magazine. I'll do this very quickly. In '72, we had our first theatrical production, and it introduced a couple of young actors named John Belushi and Chevy Chase. And then we did our second show, and we had Gilda Radner, Bill Murray, Belushi again, Joe Flaherty, Harold Ramis, and people like that. And then we went on, and other stars appeared in the other shows. And then in '78, we did a movie called Animal House, which sort of revolutionized comedy in movies. There have been 364 pictures that tried to be Animal House since Animal House. We, however, this is the first time we've ever done the same thing in the movies, and the only reason we're doing it is that it's a sequel. We did Vacation, which was, in my opinion, completely different than any other comedy, and now we're doing European Vacation.
But yet so far there has been a common bond of a physicality, a kind of a slashing humor at times. No sacred cows in Lampoon humor.
No, we do black comedy, which is actually has now become, and I think we're the people who popularized it, contemporary comedy. We were the first ones to joke about death and sickness and all sorts of problems. And indeed, in the first picture, probably the 2 most talked about elements in the first picture were the a dog dying and being killed accidentally, and an ant dying and being put on the top of the roof of a station wagon.
And I'll have to tell you, I was uncomfortable when that dog was dead, tied to the bumper.
Well, most people were hysterical, so you're off by yourself there.
Isn't it funny that humor can sometimes be so disturbing, though, to some of us?
Well, we like that.
Yeah.
The worst thing is apathy. That's what we don't want. We want you either to hate us or love us, but don't be apathetic about us.
I wonder if that might be one of those great secrets behind the enduring popularity of comedy. It's never apathetic.
Good comedy certainly isn't.
Yeah.
There is comedy that puts you to sleep. I don't think we're guilty of that, though.
You have been around a lot of comedy
Well,
for a lot of years. I want to thank you so much because the newest one is called Lampoon European Vacation. That's Matty Simmons. And from Los Angeles for KCTV5, I'm John Tibbetts.